Welcome to the show, Hank. Today we have with us Ormon Grimsby. If you've not heard of him, he is a character in the long line of TV personalities like Svengoolie, Joe Bob Briggs, Vampirella, the dying breed of the midnight movie feature host. And I ran into Ormon on accident on Facebook, found all of his stuff, and decided I had to talk to Ormon. So, Ormon, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. That's a great intro. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Right off the top, before we get lost and everything else, go ahead and tell everybody how to contact you, your website, social media, plug whatever it is you want to plug away.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you. Well, right now we have our website, which is mcftv.com, and Facebook, which I believe is Ormon Grimsby. That has kind of waffled over the year with the name change, but because of Facebook policies and whatnot. But we're on in Raleigh, North Carolina on Wednesday evenings and Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. just in time for your bowl of cereal. And we've been airing in the Raleigh area for about 10 years now, and we're getting ready to do a whole brand new set of shows that is going to launch on a brand new Roku channel called OSI, Outer Space International, which is being helmed by Mr. Lobo himself, a host out of many areas, but originally out of the Bay Area in California. So pretty excited about the new stuff.
I've heard his name. I don't know if I've seen something on the internet with him or if I've actually watched his show on TV.
He was on MeTV for a while, which aired throughout the country, and he's got more of a straight look, where he's in a black suit with the black glasses and a very dry sense of humor. He's great. I love his show.
He was an older guy too, right?
No. Well,
No?
40s, maybe early 40s. That's relative, right?
Yeah, well, relative to I'm probably the youngest one, but I love to see, because this is the stuff that I grew up on. So when I found you, I was like, holy shit, there's somebody else. I grew up on Svengoolie, and there was somebody, I can't remember the name of him. I've been trying to look him up since I moved away from Colorado. I grew up in Colorado. There was somebody on public broadcasting in Colorado that I would watch every Friday night. This, like, the love of the old camp is just, it's dying. And so when I found your channel, it was something that I've watched basically every video you have.
Oh, thank you very much. I love all the old movies. That was one of the reasons for trying to bring some of this stuff back. That, and at the time when I started doing this, I was not aware that there were so many people around the country trying to revitalize the genre, from, you know, people that grew up with the same kind of thing from local hosts back in the 70s and early 80s and that sort of thing.
Now, what got you started? What made you decide you're going to build your set? You're going to go. I'm not sure how public broadcasting works as far as like airing a specific show every week. But what was your inspiration just to build your set and get going?
Well, kind of like I mentioned that at the time, which was 11 years ago now, I was at a point in my life where I really missed this kind of thing. Reality TV was really huge, and I was not into that, and that didn't speak to me, and I didn't see a whole lot of imagination. And I thought, no one's doing this. Why don't I give it a shot and try and do it? And I think if I updated it and kind of created it around some of the more popular things going on in pop culture now, maybe it would be more of a success. And I grew up in Detroit, and we had Sir Graves Ghastly up there, and when I was a kid, and everybody watched that or The Ghoul, and it was such a zeitgeist where everybody experienced it at that time. Everybody was into the same thing, and there was like a local host, and it really brought people together, or at least it made you feel part of a community that was very specific to the region that you grew up in. Cleveland had their guy, and different parts of Ohio had their guy. Pittsburgh had their guy, and so it was very regional. And so I thought, Raleigh, is it's a big city, but it's very small town feeling, and maybe I could bring some of that back. And so when I first started, I wanted to kind of tie my show into the rockabilly, hot rod, surf counterculture that was really hot at the time, and I thought that would be a way to kind of update it to a more modern audience. And those were the main things. I thought that the time was right at the time, and I just missed the format. I was a fan growing up, so those were the main reasons.
Now you do just from your Facebook. I've noticed you do sculptures and mask making, and you hit the convention circuit every once in a while. Is it mostly just local conventions, or do you try to get around to bigger conventions as well?
I've done different ones, and it's just conventions are expensive, So I try and do. I'll try different ones out. I did the Monster Bash convention up in Pittsburgh a few years ago, and there was one in Tennessee that we did called the Classic Monster Convention, and then every year I do Mad Monster Party in Charlotte because it's right in my backyard. But really, I think Mad Monster Party is the only one we're set to do this coming year, just because it's so expensive, and it's hard to do that, to get around and drag all the stuff, and I want to bring as much from the show as I can, and kind of have it there live rather than just being on the web or wherever. But with the launch of the new channel, maybe we'll do more conventions with Mr. Lobo up in the DC area and that sort of thing. This new horror, it's not a horror channel, it's kind of a retro nostalgia kind of channel, and like I said, it's called Outer Space International, and I can't say who's going to be on it just yet, but there's a whole bunch of different shows, and it's set up to be like a network out of the 70s, and it's going to have that feel where when you watch it, you're kind of part of it, and that's the draw. So it's going to be this thing that I think people are going to be really excited to be a part of. So I might do more conventions in promoting that, but nothing marked in stone, as it were.
Yeah. Now, are you able to monetize what you're doing at the moment, or is that something that's coming with the new channel?
No, I don't know anybody. Sven Gulli, I think he's still on the air, and he may be the only one, and Elvira, but who actually make money doing this sort of thing, or at least a living wage. But everybody else I know is still trying to figure out how to monetize it and make it work. You can get on in a number of different areas. Usually it's not exposure that's the problem. It's trying to figure out how to make money from that. We worked with our local affiliate here in Raleigh, NBC, to do a Halloween special and also to host our show on a regular weekly basis. And this was in 2009, and at that time, they were struggling with the same question. That's why you see so many infomercials on TV now, because advertisers, the advertising dollar, that people don't want to pay to advertise on TV. They can't charge what they used to, and so there's this whole pay-to-play system in place now, which is the infomercial, where it's like, hey, we'll just buy time and run whatever we want on it, and the stations love that because they're guaranteed revenue. So in 2009, we talked about coming on to NBC, and they just couldn't really figure out how to make it work for them financially, or anybody else. I mean, they'd be like, we came to the conclusion that they had 4 digital channels. One, they were literally going to stick and point out the window to show the weather, and they said we could stick you on that at 4 a.m. on Thursday mornings or something like that. But I really couldn't see where that would work for anybody. So yeah, we're still trying to figure that out. OSI, the idea is that there will be a whole line of different products that people will be able to buy that'll be associated with the network, with the shows. And I think we're going to do something called a tip jar, where, because it's going to be on multiple platforms, one of them being Roku. So there'll be a live stream, as I understand it, and then a bunch of on-demand stuff. And they're talking about a subscription service, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not. But like I said, the tip jar is, basically like a Kickstarter without, what do you call them?
Rewards.
Rewards, right.
That was something that always... That's something that I'm trying to figure out for this show, is a way to lighten the burden, because we do this much like you're doing. It's a labor of love. We like doing it, so whatever expenses, we just kind of pay as they come. So it's always something that I'm always trying to figure out, how do we lighten that load a little bit? And Kickstarter and Patreon, these are all things that I've looked into, but I don't understand them. To be honest with you, I don't understand them. So it's interesting to hear how other people are handling their own passion projects that really don't do anything other than make them feel better and drain their wallet.
I mean, there are success stories out there, but I think there's also this illusion that a lot of the success stories are just people out of the blue put their stuff out there and it happened for them, and I think that's kind of a myth. There's a lot of services and marketing companies that, for Kickstarters, that you can hire, and they will create a successful Kickstarter for you, and they get out there and they promote it on social media, and there's kind of a lot more to it than people realize, I think.
I've been, Dennis, you've been, every time I go to say something, I interrupt you, it looks like.
It's normal. I mean, well, no, usually it's me doing it to you, so today it's just the other way around. I was going to say, since you started, as you said, 11 years ago, with the advent more technology of, like, internet channels, like you said, Roku and everything else, do you find it's a lot easier to get yourself, I don't want to say more noticed, but, like, just, watch it, so people go, hey, you can check my show out here, here, and here, instead of just like, well, I live in Raleigh and best luck to ever see my stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, we live in a time that it's both a blessing and a curse, where if you want to create something, you can do it and you can get it out there, and that's great. But you're also in a sea of other people who are doing the exact same thing. So that's kind of the rub, right? How do you get noticed with so many different avenues and whatnot? I don't know. I don't have an answer, and the only answer I have for myself is to try and create something that I'm happy with and that satisfies me artistically in terms of what I set out to do. and if it reaches people, that's great. But I've kind of turned that part of me off in that if the only motivation for me to do this is getting recognized, then it kind of kills the creative side, if that makes sense. And so I can't really think about that too much. But, you know, yeah, public access, anybody can put anything they want on, which is great. And it's still local. And some areas, I'm really lucky in terms that I'm in Raleigh, but we only have one public access outlet, you know. So you go to a place like New York, or you go to Detroit, and there's 20 different cable stations, and each one controls a 2 mile by 2 mile area. It's certainly going to be a lot harder to get content out to the people that you want. But I live in a, you know, one station, 100,000 people, so that's kind of cool. And it's cool still being on TV. You know, in terms of, even if it is public access and there is a stigma about it, you're on TV, so that's kind of neat. But Roku and was it Livestream, Ustream? I don't know. They keep changing.
Yeah.
And YouTube. You know, I know so many people that's how they get their show out, and there's a lot of successful shows out there. Most, you know, on pop culture and media. And was it like Comic Book Girl, and there's the Crazy Critic or Nostalgia Critic, and I mean, they've got pretty big fan bases. And I think when you get that big, that's when you start getting the revenue in terms of advertising dollar from those outlets. I personally don't have to worry about the numbers at this point, but
yeah, that was a hard lesson for me to learn. The focusing on, it wasn't so much recognition, but focusing on people listening, how many people are listening, right, and how many people are contacting us, which has been one in the 3 years that we've been doing this. It was hard for me to learn that lesson of don't focus so much on that, because that became, as time went on, that became a huge source of disappointment for me. And it affected me on the show. It affected how the show ran, because I'm sitting over here bummed out because nobody's listening to us, and nobody's talking to us, and nobody's recognizing the genius of this show. And it got to the point where I just had to say, if nobody listens, I'm still going to be here next week. You know, and that's something I can appreciate about what you do, because it's still like I'm the horror fan of the show, and that the idea of the, not even necessarily public access, but that late night monster movie host show is still kind of marginalized. Like, oh, well, nobody watches those movies. Who cares about those movies? But those are the greatest movies ever, and most of the time, yourself included, the host, the personality, the character that they're portraying are some of the best on TV.
Oh,
and
thank you.
It's so marginalized. That's sorry, I'm trying to phrase
Now's
my
your time,
next question.
Dennis. Strike while the iron's hot.
Jump in here. Just jump in right here. I wish I would have done that with Kung Fu movies. I always remember growing up watching like Samurai Saturday. They don't have that anymore. They never had a host. They just threw it on.
So you started.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. It's not gonna happen.
They had in Detroit. They had a show like you're talking about with a host, and they showed kung fu movies. And they, last I checked, which was a while ago, they had a guy trying to host those types of movies out in California on public access, doing the same type of thing. Because up until I think like 2 years ago, there were the copyright laws changed, and so a lot of this of course, is dependent on the content that you can use. So I personally show public domain films, and a lot of foreign films were considered either public domain or fair use, and so a lot of the kung fu movies kind of fell into that category, and I think they have since kind of fallen out of that category because they changed the laws, copyright laws, about 2 years ago, and they're constantly changing them, where foreign copyright holders can enforce their copyright in other countries now. So a lot of stuff has fallen back out of public domain, excuse me. But yeah, I remember those shows too. The kung fu shows were great.
Now, have you tried or had the opportunity to maybe license with a newer movie? Has anybody ever approached you, or have you thought about that?
I've gotten offers to show people's work. The problem that I personally have with that is obviously the people who made the film still own the rights to the film, as they should. And so when I get into a relationship like that, that means I can basically show that film one time. And I kind of try and get into a position where I can show the episode or the various episodes multiple times. And if I wanted to, I could make a DVD and sell it or distribute it. And by doing that with someone's film, it kind of takes all that away from me. I know there's another host out of Washington, D.C., Count Gordeval, and he's been around forever. He's one of the old original hosts from the 70s, and he's still doing Count Gordeval's creature feature, which he hosts on the web. And he has two formats, where one is the classic older film, and then he has a second show format where it's spotlighting new talent. And he's trying to do that, where he'll either show shorts or independent filmmakers' work. And the idea there is to promote, up and coming filmmakers' work. I'm, like I said, not exactly in a position to do that. And really, with the new shows that we're doing, I'm trying to get away from showing copywritten material at all, and so it'll all be original content for the new channel that the OSI, which is going to launch in the fall. It just kind of creates a lot of problems legally, especially if that film gets picked up later by a bigger distributor, or there's a lot of festivals that if the filmmaker wants to enter their film in those festivals, it can't have been broadcast anywhere else. There's just kind of a lot to it.
Yeah, it seems to be a lot of red tape on art that shouldn't be there.
Right.
Now, by original content, are you going to be making your own serial type show?
Yeah.
Or is it going to be
the new format will be shorter. It'll be more of like a Pee Wee Herman type thing, only Ormon's world. There'll be a story arc throughout the whole thing, and then we are going to show some weird shorts and stuff like that. But it's going to be really bizarre. We're kind of going for like a liquid television, haunted house, haunted Pee-wee's Playhouse kind of flavor.
That's something that I might have to go get a Roku for that. I'm sorry, Craig, I cut you off.
Well, like remember you used to do the magic screen with the what are they called, PSAs for children for brushing their teeth and shit like that?
Yeah.
It was all public domain.
Yeah, those are great.
I might have to look into getting a Roku, because that sounds, just from the videos you have on your website and on the YouTube, that's something that doesn't exist anymore. Like I personally, I hate television. It's always on because for some reason we broke our rule of not letting my son watch television, and there's a lot of Curious George and other assorted nonsense happening. Oh, good God,
right
he's
watching educational television, you know.
Barney. That's Barney.
The idea was to not let him watch TV, to activate his mind some other way.
He's not old enough to read your creepy books.
Yeah, well, I have a whole bookshelf of books for him, children's books.
Okay, but, sorry, he's not old enough to read yet.
Well, Travis, if you go online, you can find a comic book version of Cthulhu. It's called Kid Cthulhu.
Yeah.
Go check.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I got the ABC Cthulhu pop-up book, which is an awesome one. I did that on Kickstarter. But the format that I like, the way you do your show, it's the right kind of camp. You know, a lot of times it's when you have things that are campy or that are focused in the direction of old school horror movies or creature movies, like the giant bugs or the giant monsters. It's always done almost mockingly. And the way you do your show, your set looks immaculate, which I actually want to ask you about in a minute. You don't, unlike me on this show, you don't stumble over what you're trying to say. You present a whole product. So for it to be, for you to have a serial show, to have a weekly or bi-weekly serial show, that's actually something that I'm interested in watching, because there's nothing good on TV anymore.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. Yeah, that was kind of always the goal. It's just, you know, money and time, you know, trying to pull it off. But yeah, I always viewed the whole thing as being important. The look and the character, and I mean, there's plenty of shows I've done where I'm terrible. So, but we tried to have at least an overall concept where everything kind of worked and fit together. If that comes through, that's awesome. Thank you.
Now, how did you? Is a two-part question, I guess. One, how did you develop the character of Ormon Grimsby? And two, your set, did you, because I know you do a lot of, you do the mask making, you do the sculpting. Did you make a lot of that, or did you buy it and then set it up, or buy something and modify it? Like your set is almost a character in and of itself. In fact, it plays a part as a character in some of your episodes.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. When I started out, the one thing I wanted to do was I wanted to make Ormon not a guy being a host, you know, because that's one way to go. Just, you know, hey, I'm the painted up guy and I'm hosting the movie. I want Ormon to be a real monster in this world, and you know, and the world's real and he's real. So that's what we were going for. And yeah, I built everything. We've had three different versions of the set, because we've changed locations 3 or 4 times. We were renting out space at one place, and then it was at my house at a different time, and then in a different place, and then we did, like I said, one show at NBC, and that was a different setup. But I just, you know, figured it out as I went, and I took inspiration from the things that I liked for both the set and the character, and that's kind of an amalgam of all those things. Like I said, I wanted a lot of texture. So with Ormon, he's kind of a combination of. There's some obvious things in there like Rob Zombie and different horror movies. The Funhouse was one that I really was influenced by, and Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. There's a lot of the look from that, and so I just wanted everything to look as real as possible instead of going with just having a backdrop and a couple candles or something, and that's a way to go. But I was really trying to make it feel like it was this world that you were coming into. Fright Night I'm a huge fan of that film, and for as little as you get to see Roddy McDowall and his show, it was kind of like, yeah, I'd like to do it like that, because they kind of have the camera angle where they cut away from the show and you get to see this cool set and everything like that. And I'm like, that's a great playground to have, So with the limited resources I had, I tried to recreate that, and I just did it the best I could. It's a work in progress, as everything is.
As Dennis hurts his brain.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say something and it completely slipped out of my head. So now I'm like, damn it. It's been a long day. You said growing up, you said you watched a lot of different, like you said, not like Svengoolie, but kind of like Svengoolie out by you. Was there any other shows that kind of helped you kind of create your ideas? Because for me, like, I grew up watching like MST3K, like a lot of people did, back in the 90s.
Trailer Park with Joe Bob Briggs.
And then there's a Trailer Park movie with Joe Bob Briggs. It was on, what was that, the Movie Channel or whatever it was back in the
USA
day?
or something.
Yeah. He was on TMC.
Yeah, I loved all that stuff too. I like the really handmade stuff, handmade looking stuff. I love what's his name? He was the art director on Pee-wee's Playhouse. White is his last name. He's just Wayne White is a phenomenal artist, art director, animator, and his look and feel. He did the music video for Peter Gabriel for Sledgehammer. He art directed all that. That look, that feel. With my goofball show, I really wanted it to have kind of an anarchistic kind of feel. I was a big fan of the Young Ones growing up, and I wanted to try and get that sensibility in there. Up in Detroit, we had a production company when I was coming up called Chrome Bumper, which was just a couple guys, and they did a bunch of music videos, and they had a studio in the back of a shop, and they just made everything out of paper mache, and we didn't have digital video non-linear editing. Everything was 16 millimeter or 8 millimeter, and then you transferred to video and edited deck to deck and stuff like that. And I worked with them on a couple projects, and I still find inspiration in what they did. It was just like, hey, we got a crazy idea, let's make it work. It's that MST 3000 where we're in a room, but with the imagination, we can make it anything. It could be any story. It's like, let's look at that screen and then we'll cut to something. I love that idea of making something out of nothing. And then I had a really good friend here in Raleigh, Tom Keebler, who's a sculptor, and he gave me a bunch of props, and he's just a good friend, but he has that same aesthetic where he makes these amazing silicone sideshow oddity sculptures, and a lot of the pieces on the sculptures, not the sculpts themselves, but a lot of the props are found objects that he will turn upside down and repaint or just add something to and cast it. I love that aspect of taking garbage and making something really cool out of it, So that aesthetic was a big influence. All that 80s stuff I love. Late 80s even, Ren and Stimpy, Liquid Television. Like I said, the Young Ones, a lot of the British humor. I don't think it really comes through, but we're trying to get as much of that in as we could. And hopefully we'll get it in on the new shows.
It does shine through, not so much direct influence, like it doesn't come through as, oh well, that's definitely he watched MST3K right before shooting this one, or he watched this show. But I totally get the references or the inspiration to the Young Ones, and that just kind of visual crassness where it's not, I can't even explain it, but I can see the definite influence in there.
Cool. Yeah. That period where it was more about, I don't know how to explain it. It was, the writing was so good on that show, and the comedy and the timing and the actors, I'm not saying we have anything like that, but that show was so great. And if you could like glean just, 0.005% of that, at least you're in the right direction.
No,
sorry.
Walk us through, like,
I see Travis took over the show. Into breaking.
Huh?
Nothing. I ain't saying.
over there mumbling. Like an average shoot, do you have a team? Is it you and just somebody manning the camera? On average, like, how long does it take you to make an episode? And what kind of goes into it? Because that's the creation of it is what interests me the most. Because obviously, like I've said, you're an artist outside of doing the show. So yeah, just give me an example of the creation of an episode.
It's kind of changed over the years, and unfortunately, like you said, I have kind of the creative brain, like a lot of people, so I'm not very organized. It started out, we were doing a weekly show, and so I would try and include some bit of monster pop culture, be it an interview or a band or something like that, in every episode. So, like, one episode we interviewed Bernie Wrightson. On another episode we had a music video that I shot for Alcazar Hotel. And so those bits were all done previously to organizing the whole episode. So, like, maybe I'd have 10 little pieces that I could include. And then every week, writing, there were myself, and then I had two others. Clay Griffith was writing a bunch of episodes at one point. He and his wife, Susan Griffith, are now successful novelists. They do the Vampire Empire series, and they just did another series that he's going to kill me. I forgot the name. But so I haven't worked with him in a while because he went off and got successful. And then Ken McGuire was another guy that I came up with that we would write together. So we would write early part of the week, and then I would shoot over the weekends and then edit the following week. So each episode was like 2-week turnaround in the beginning. As time went on, it became more like every month there was an episode because they kind of got more involved. But for the ones we're doing now, we're trying to write everything up front, and I'm working with Mr. Lobo, writing some of the new stuff, and have everything shot back to back. So we're going to have 13 new episodes, like I said, and those are all going to get shot at the same time and then edited as we go. So we're trying to get more streamlined and do it a little more professional. But in the beginning, it was just every week was a new episode, or every 2 weeks. And you can really only keep that pace up for so long. And we'd have floating people come in and out. I had maybe 4 key people who would help out with the writing or with producing or whatever needed to be done. And, you know, it's just kind of catch as catch can. There's another host up in Michigan, Wolfman Mac, and I'd been a guest on his show a couple of times, and he had a full-on crew of about 20 people, and they had their show going. They had multiple iterations as well. I think they started in 2006, and they were on Channel 20 up there, and they were doing, as I understand it, the pay-to-play model, and they were trying to sell advertising time, and they were on for, I want to say, 3 years, and then they took a break, and then they came back with a bunch of other shows. But it was kind of the same situation because you're not paying anybody, so the people that come to it get out of it what they want to get out of, and so you kind of have a rotating door of people, you know, because they have commitments and they have lives and they can't stay tied to this thing for years and years on end, you know. So I've been really fortunate to meet and make a lot of great friends doing this, and it's really just whoever can lend a hand at the time.
Yeah, it's got that punk rock feel to it.
Awesome.
Where, you know, you have a show, and I know for most people listening it might sound like I'm just blowing smoke up your ass because you're a guest, but you have a show, and it's something that I've actually spent my break times at work watching your videos, because I found you through a friend of mine on Facebook. It reignited the old feelings that I had as a kid watching Public Access or watching Joe Bob Briggs, who I've all but begged to come on the show. The idea that, like, your production, your story, your character, your set, it's all very professional. It's all very polished. It looks like it's meant to look from an outsider's view. But the overall atmosphere that you gather from it, for those who are familiar with it, it's very punk rock, it's very guerrilla, it's very, like, this is a passion, and here's a character that I've created, and this is art, and I don't really give a shit if you like it or not. I'm going to keep doing it. And I personally have gathered that feeling from watching your videos.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. You know, yeah, I mean, when I started too, the target was Public Access, so I mean that kind of was the attitude too, you know. It was like, well, I'm in here with some pretty kooky people, so let's see what happens.
At least you're not like the Family Guy staple of the PBS Kiss show, where the guy is just standing there, sitting in a room with a phone, taking phone calls all night.
I'd love to do a documentary on Public Access TV shows. There's so many interesting people, you know. I'm sure there's probably a couple out there.
And it probably, yeah, it might, but it does vary from place to place, as you've stated before. But it would be something that I'd be interested in watching. I'd be interested in making the same type of thing too, because it's, if you look at each region, like you've talked about earlier in the show, Indiana had Svengoolie. I can't remember the guy. Craig.
Yeah.
Chicago had Svengoolie, not Indiana.
Well, he came into the greater Chicago metro area, which crossed the Indiana border.
Well, you need to understand, Travis, where you lived in Indiana is part of Chicago. It's not part of Indiana as a whole. That's why we have a different time zone than the rest of the state.
Yeah.
Is it a different time zone there?
Yes, it is.
It is.
I thought all of Indiana was Central Time.
No, Indiana's on Indiana time. Except for the central part that we're in. Seriously, there's a separate time zone for Indiana because it doesn't change over when with daylight savings time. The rest of the state doesn't acknowledge that. So sometimes they're on our time, sometimes they're not.
I lived in Chicago for about 2 years, and went back and forth between Detroit and Chicago.
Yeah.
And it was crazy with the time change because it was like in fall. It's like the lights out at the same time, and it's pitch black in the other city, and it's at the same time.
And I lived there for what, 7 years, and I never understood it the entire time I lived there, because I'm originally from Colorado, so I'm like daylight savings. That's one thing. Time zones. I never understood time zones until I moved out of my original time zone.
Travis, you didn't understand time zones until like that one time Liesel couldn't make it on the show because you tried to have us call her at 7 in the morning her time.
No, it was 7 in the morning my time. So yeah, I've struggled with time zones
up until like a couple months ago.
But the region, the regional feel of it, and maybe that's where you should take your documentary, should you ever shoot one, is what makes it special. Like every area knows it's public access. If you're into public access, like if you watch, like here in New Jersey, we have a lot of Masterpiece Theater on public access. The first 12 hours of the day is all Masterpiece Theater. That's all it is. And then there's some news, and then there's some weather, and then I've never watched anything past 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But every region, if you watch your public broadcasting station, you know it. And it's like those are people you know personally. Where whether you know them or not, it feels like you know that host or this personality that's doing the weather or this personality that's doing the news. You feel like you know them personally, just like a lot of people. My mom, for instance, will talk about the news anchors in Greeley, Colorado. Like she knows them, like she knows them personally, like she goes to dinner with them. So it's very. There's something special about public broadcasting, whereas it does get marginalized in bigger media. There's something special about the people who do public broadcasting.
Well, I think what it is, Travis, is when you have a public, like I knew some people out here who did, I mean, we had public access in Indiana, which is even worse. That's like, I mean, it wouldn't leave like 2 towns over, but it had it. And there's some people who did some did like an underground horror show thing. They weren't very good at it, but they gave it their all. But it was always nice to watch because it was if they said anything or cracked a joke, it was somewhere about the area you lived in. You could get. You'd be like, oh, I get that joke, or I get the area because I'm from there.
I think I've seen that show you're talking about, and it was terrible.
Yeah,
they were like crawling around a graveyard or something.
Yes.
Okay, exactly I saw that. Yeah, like one time.
Yeah. Dude, I knew all those guys. Yes, it wasn't very good at all, and I admit that. But they gave it a shot. I give them that much credit because I wouldn't have done it in the first place. But it was nice to watch. It's the same thing with like Svengoolie. He would, the joke Berwyn. It was like no one will get that joke unless you're from that area.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, see, we're kind of spoiled around here, Dennis, because like what is basically the equivalent of public access in a lot of places is MeTV for us. You know what I mean? Like that's like the public. It's like a lower bandwidth station, but now it's gone national, so now everybody knows it.
Mm.
And that's like you can watch Gunsmoke at 3 in the afternoon, but everybody knows what channel that is. Not like it used to be, where like them channels in that range weren't really known across the country before, but being this close to a large city like that, we're getting more of a
true
spread on that. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't think it really matters now in the internet age, like how much. For example, we're talking to Ormon, who broadcasts in North Carolina, in Raleigh, where none of us are even remotely close to. I'm the closest, but still.
So you're better than us. We get it.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. But we're still here talking to him because the benefit of the internet has given us the open access to, hey, you do this show, even though it airs in your local station once a month or twice a month, we have access to you because you're a content creator and you've taken the time to actually put that out. And I think a lot of the similar characters, the similar personalities have been doing the same thing. I just happen to find and glom onto and bug the shit out of, which I appreciate you giving me the time, and I apologize for bugging you so much, but
yes,
we just happen to find.
I was gonna say, Travis does have this slightly stalker-esque thing.
Kindred spirits. Kindred spirits.
I'm persistent. Don't call me a stalker. I'm persistent.
Would Stephen Blackmore say that?
If he was being nice. We like, and that to me is the most interesting part of this, is because if without the internet, we could never know what you do there in North Carolina.
Right.
And without the internet, the whole world would never know. Which, the whole world might never know, but enough people will know about your show and what you do that it will grow just that little bit, which was part of the reason why I wanted to talk to you. Is I wanted to bring even a wider audience, even if it's just Hank, to Hank is our one listener who has contacted us, by the way. We never did explain that. Yeah, he's the only person who's ever talked to us in the history of the show. So,
Hank, thanks
but
for listening.
even if it's just Hank, I wanted to bring a wider audience to what you do, because it's fascinating to me, because I'm honestly too lazy to put that kind of effort in. It's real easy. This show is real easy. I just have to get on the computer.
Yeah, because I do everything now.
Well, yeah, and you guys don't want me doing it, so I mean,
Well, that's true.
Yeah, we learned that lesson.
It's funny what you were saying about the internet, though, opening stuff up. It's very true. The very first theme that we had for our show was done by the Ghastly Ones, and I got that permission to use that through Norman, who was one of the Ghastly Ones who I'd met. I lived out in LA for a while too, and I met him at their first gig when they were playing, and it's a stupid story, but I'm at the bar, and this is nothing to do with the point I was trying to make, but I'm at the bar and I'm watching the Ghastly Ones, and this guy comes in, he's all Rob Zombied out, and I'm like, look at that guy, looks like Rob Zombie. And I go to the bathroom, I come out, my friend I'm there with is talking to this guy, and I walk up and I'm like, hey, what's up? And he's like, hey, this is Rob. It was Rob Zombie. Oh, okay. So Rob Zombie winds up producing their first album. He was there at that gig. And anyway, I got permission to use one of their songs. They do surf rock, and they did a variation of the Haunted Mansion theme, which I'd always loved. And they started playing in 96 and played through like 98, 99, released the album, not much happened. And they kind of went their separate ways, and then MySpace and everything kind of with the social media took off, and they got a friend of theirs put together a MySpace page for them, and they knew that they had a small following, but their MySpace page blew up, and they had no idea they had so many followers across the country, and so they reunited and reformed for, I think, another 5 years, just based on the feedback they got through the internet. So like what you're saying about how obviously the internet brings people together in ways that finding content or finding out about events or bands or music or TV shows, you know, you would never find out any other way. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many of those stories out there. It really, again, coming back to doing this type of show and getting it out there, the internet is really amazing in what it can be used for as a tool. Long story, short point.
That's actually one. It's actually really cool that you got to. Me, I don't particularly care for Rob Zombie's music, but he does make a pretty mean movie when he sets out for it.
He was a nice guy. I mean, I just met him for like 10 minutes, but he was cool. And then I keep working with different people on different projects who work for him. I've been working with Dave Hartman for last 8 years on a project that he's directing, and he does a lot of artwork for Rob Zombie and storyboards. I think a lot of his films, and did some. He does like. He has a kind of a cartoonish look to his drawings, and he did a lot of the artwork in. Let's see, Sinister Urge, or it was the album after that. I don't know, but he's worked with Rob Zombie a lot, so I keep bumping into people that are close with Rob Zombie. Like one day he's gonna come on my show. One day.
Well, now that you have the new show coming on Roku, it might not be that far of a stretch.
He's a pretty busy guy. I don't know. We can fly him in.
Sorry, I'm having lag issues on my end, so I am paying attention. But I just blanked.
Are you having lag issues with your computer or your brain?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Both. It's been a long day, and I've had a couple to drink. 3. So my brain's not working quite as up to speed. How do you find time to? Because I'm going to assume that you have a day job. How do you find time to create not only your show, but the masks that you make, the art that you make, and then keep up that the passion for it? Because that's something I struggle with just on a daily basis. I'm not that great of an artist. I'm not that great of a musician, but those are two things that I enjoy, but I don't have the energy for it. When I get home at night, I spend some time with my kid. I spend some time with the wife. I pass out on the couch until it's time to go to bed.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have an answer. I'm probably the laziest guy you'll ever meet. Yeah, I struggle with that too. And like I said, I have a really short attention span, so it's common with creative people. They have really piss poor follow through. So I'm no different. I don't know. I just try and compartmentalize a little bit so that, I'm to the point where I'm too old and I don't have a lot of time for certain stuff, so I really am trying to narrow what it is I'm working on. But yeah, I don't know. I struggle with the same thing because I have so many interests. Yeah, I dabble in music and I dabble in this and that, and I do have the day job and I do have the family, and I just, try and get done what I can get done. I wish I had a good answer. I don't. Well, 80% of my day is this, and I know drummers who are, because drummers are extremely organized. I found that through and through in almost every band. That, like, okay, well, I get up an hour before work and I jog, and that gets my mind set up for the rest of the day, and then work is this 8 hours, and then I don't do anything after that 8 hours, and it's like, I can't do that. I don't know. Everything kind of bleeds for me.
I wish I had known an organized drummer and all the times that I tried to start a band.
Yeah.
Every drummer I've ever known has been a flake.
Yeah.
It's been the exact opposite. It does just for anybody who's listening, all 15 of you, go to, make sure I get it right this time, mcftv.com. Look on the media, click the media tab, watch every video he has up there, and you'll see why the admiration, for me at least, is there, because it's... And then follow him on Facebook. One of the funnier people that I haven't had to unfollow recently, because I just recently got on Facebook. So
You're like a Facebook hipster and you've been on for 2 weeks.
yeah, well, you get to following people, and then you realize, or you get to friend people, even people from my past, like people that I'm friends with or family. I've had to just say, I can't have you keep flooding my timeline with this nonsense.
Sorry, Travis's mom.
No, I still follow my mom. Even though... That...
Yeah, my name's Sam, and I don't give a fuck.
That is our 2-minute warning.
I love that.
So before I stumble us out of here again, for the... How many shows have we done? 117 now?
This is episode 20.
Episode 20?
Yeah.
No. Episode 20 of the Oatmeal Raisin Conspiracy.
Yes.
Yes, don't worry about it.
But once again, go ahead and plug your website, your social media, and any parting thoughts that you have before I completely butcher the end of the show.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Yeah, was it mcftv.com? That's our website, which hasn't really been updated properly. And then the new Roku multimedia explosion that's going to happen in the fall is going to be OSI, Outer Space International, Channel 74. And the website for that, I think, is osi74.com. I'm not 100%. But thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. I love this stuff, and I love talking about this stuff. I'm glad you guys dig the old horror hosts and that the nostalgia of the whole thing.
Thanks for coming on. And anytime you have anything to plug, even if you just want to come on for 5 minutes and say, "Hey, this is something I got going on, and you should talk about it," you're more than welcome back anytime.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Third. All right, then it's a unanimous vote. Good job, guys.
All right.
What?
I think he had a stroke. Let's go with it.